Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the podcast. I'm very lucky to be joined today again. Very popular demand for this one. We had obviously Danny back on, I think it was like February time. So got Danny back on again. We're obviously going to do this couples podcast, which people love. So what we're going to do, I thought that it would be fair to sort of like, obviously people follow both me and Danny on Instagram and follow our journeys and where we're heading towards in terms of our own goals. So I thought it'd be cool to give you guys a little bit of an update on where Danny's at with regards to bodybuilding, her competitive endeavours, and obviously where she's at right now in terms of her off-season. And so we're going to cover a bit on that. We're going to cover a bit of an update on myself, as I always do with my solo podcasts. And then we're going to roll into very similar fashion as I do with my solo podcasts in terms of just answering some of your guys' questions on Instagram, which we were very grateful to get again. And we are going to stick to audio for this one, as we are in inappropriate lighting, is what Danny called. So we're not ready to we're not ready to show our faces.
It wasn't
on this
just
one.
my decision.
We agreed that the lighting wasn't favourable, and we're only 1 week into the mini cut, so we're not right at the point where our jawlines are appropriate for the camera at sort of an optimal angle. Correct.
Yeah. Off-season face.
Yeah, off-season face is still in. All right, so let's get cracking. So Danny, let's get the listeners a bit of an update on you. So what's going on right now, where you at in your off-season, and yeah, just give listeners a bit of an update. What's going on with you?
So someone asked me on my Instagram questions, when is your next competition? #legend. Thank you for calling me a legend. I wouldn't say so, but anyway. So I am, as I previously have mentioned, I'm next competing in 2020, and I'm going to stick to that game plan. So yeah, the whole of this year will be taken off. Even if I wanted to compete this year, it's only 12 weeks until like the last Two Bros qualifier, which is far too soon to lose 20 pounds if I wanted to be in my best condition. So yes, I'm waiting till next year, and my plans are to compete with both Two Bros and the PCA. It's my last year as a junior bikini athlete, so I kind of want to take advantage and do both federations, and then I'll potentially do a pro qualifier at the end of 2020 just to see how I stand against the older girls. So yeah, I'm sticking to the original plan. In my off season at the minute, I am 1 week into a mini cut. I'm 20 pounds above my previous stage weight. So my previous stage weight was 120 pounds, and I'm now 140 pounds. And yeah, like I said, 1 week into a mini cut, and the reason I'm doing this mini cut is for a photo shoot that I'm doing for Compact. If I wasn't doing this photo shoot, I probably wouldn't have mini cutted this early. I don't think. I think I would have stayed out of a deficit a little bit longer, but because I've got this photo shoot, I just want to feel a little bit more confident. I was about at my upper limit for how much I wanted to push above my stage weight anyway, so it wasn't an issue to do the mini cut, so I've decided to start it now, and it will be lasting 6 weeks until the end of July. And AJ has decided to do a mini cut at the same time as I have. So he decided to
Looks
copy
like
me.
I've copied. Yeah, brilliant.
And join in.
Sake. Join in.
Yeah, he wanted in on the mini cut.
God's sake.
He didn't want me to look more dieted than he did, so
Brilliant.
he decided to mini cut with me.
Yeah,
and that is where we're at the minute. I'm aiming to lose around like 6 or 7 pounds, and then probably spend after that as much time as possible out of a deficit until we prep next year. But that being said, I don't want to start prep any more than 20 pounds above my stage weight, because the aim will be to get shredded and not have to do an absolute mammoth of a prep, and obviously hold on to as much muscle tissue as possible. So if I have to lose like a really large amount of weight, so I had to lose 30 pounds, it would just mean that I either, one, have to do a super long prep, or two, have to be really aggressive with it, which I don't want to do. I think the best thing for me is to stay within about 20 pounds above stage weight and go from there to start prep. So that's the plan, and me and AJ will probably end up prepping at a similar time next season, I think.
Yeah, all being well. So that's a pretty cool, swift update on you and where you're at. I think more girls need to listen to what Danny's doing and maybe take some hints and tips from sort of a competitor that's willing to take time off.
And I could add to that as well. I watched, I don't know if any of you guys have heard of Emily Hayden, but she's an IFBB pro, and she has made a vlog which I was listening to this morning, and she was talking about the importance of having time off and basically how she competed 4 years back to back, and by the 4th year she was basically done in, didn't look her best, and realised that she should have taken time off before that because she got to the point where she was almost burnt out. She said she would never compete ever again, and then now she's competing again. Now she's had that time off, she's had years off now, and she's realised she just needed a break, and she should have taken it while she was already ahead of the game, while she was in a really good position, rather than waiting to the point that she'd burnt herself out and then taking a break. She was saying how you should take a break whilst you're already ahead of the game, whilst you're making good progress, which I completely agree with. Like that, I was like, yes, that's so good to hear from a bikini athlete. And I'm also the strongest I've ever been because of taking a break, which will obviously result in more muscle tissue. So.
Yeah. There's just so many reasons why, especially as females, you want to take time away from competing and from dieting down. And I think, unfortunately, the attachment to dieting for females is a little bit heavier than a male, because obviously the feeling leaner and looking leaner and being more cosmetically pleasing as a female is a little bit more of a driving factor or force, because as a male, of course, you can kind of wear baggy hoodies and just sort of crack on a little bit, whereas females, obviously, especially in the summer months, you kind of just want to be lean. You want to look that little bit leaner and not necessarily stay stage lean, but once you've been stage lean, that's what you determine as lean. So the attachment to sort of doing a show just because it's summer or just because you've spent the off season in the winter months is certainly there, and you see that with a lot of competitors, even when their goals actually reside within doing better show to show, and they want to improve or they want to get a pro card or something like that, but they're not willing to take the time off because they're so attached to the competing process. I think more competitors should just see it as a challenge to take time off. I would be lying if I said taking 2 years off has been a challenge for me. Not dieting to stage condition for 2 years has certainly been a challenge. Watching my friends compete, watching clients compete, makes me want to compete all the time. And but I know I've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but my goal in terms of what I want to do in 2020 is way stronger than the emotions that I have attached to just doing a show just for the hell of it.
And it also makes you appreciate other areas of life as well, and I'm sure AJ will agree. During my off season, I've had so much more time and energy to put into my business and other things like that. And like you were saying, you'll have to cap your clients in 2020 because it ultimately, contest prep is very time consuming and it is very energy consuming. So you've got to be careful with where you allocate your energy almost. But during an improvement season, you've got more time and energy to spend on other aspects of life, like business, like socialising, spending time with friends and family who've supported you ultimately through your contest prep. So you should give back to them people. And there's just so many benefits to it. Yeah,
for sure. Awesome. So yeah, I think there's a lot to take from that. And again, obviously we'll be doing fairly frequent podcasts. I'd like to get Danni on here every couple of months or so and just do an update on where she's at and what's going on with things. And potentially, if there's interest, we could do something joint during our preps when we do a weekly update or something. We could do that for the site or even for YouTube and grow a bit of a following on that front and see how we're both feeling through a contest prep, because I think if some people have done that before with relationships and they've logged their contest preps together, I think it's a pretty cool thing. So we could start doing that in the future. Alright, so I guess I'll give a little bit of an update on myself as well. So where I'm at currently is obviously very similar to Danni in terms of my current goals, in terms of what I'm doing from a caloric perspective. I've just entered my first sort of deficit in about 10 months. So my last mini cut was in August of 2018. So I've been basically in a surplus since that period of time, since early September. And obviously it's been mighty productive in the sense that I've taken my body weight from the lowest point, which I got to about 167 pounds in that mini cut, which for reference was about 20 pounds above my stage weight, and that was fairly lean, provided, obviously the difference between stage and lean is quite drastic for someone of my competitive level, in the sense that, getting lines in our arse kind of thing, so that there's a big difference. So 20 pounds above that weight, and then I took it all the way up from 167 all the way to 190, and I promised, like I said on my social media, I was like, I am getting to 190 and I'll make 190 look good, and I promised that, and I said that to people that I would do that, and I did. I boxed it off. I actually held 190 for like a month and a half, and then obviously I hit that period of weird time, which I've discussed on the podcast, just before Body Power, where I just had a few weird things happen, caught something after Body Power, and just had the weirdest couple of weeks of my life in a lot of ways, or at least some of the weirdest ones. So I had that happen, and then I also lost a little bit of weight after that period of time. So I knew that I was going to do a mini cut regardless, probably after Body Power, just to start to get a level of fitness back, and my appetite was diminishing fast. I mean, Danny can even attest to that. Like, before Body Power, I was actually starting to really struggle to get in food, and it would become like, calorically dense items of food would just be slipping in really easily. And like, even when we went away to Belgium, like, my appetite was just very low, so even like nice food, palatable food, was just unattractive. And I know that at that point I was really struggling to just sort of hit baseline numbers, and I know that from past experience, my receptiveness to caloric intake at that point is just so poor that it's just not worth pushing much more than where I was at. So I actually hit, like, I think one of my heaviest weigh-ins was like 193. So certainly the heaviest I've been in my entire life. So it was nice to sort of feel what it was like to be there. However, I don't think that necessarily pushing any further than that would have yielded me any more progress in the gym. I think I can actually retain a lot of the strength that I've developed up to 190 by even being a bit lighter than where I'm at right now. Already, like, dropping the initial 4 or 5 pounds that I'll already drop in the first week of a deficit, which I already kind of have dropped up in a deficit since Sunday. I've pretty much dropped about 4 or 5 pounds, and already, like, the first thing that actually feels better for me is hip hinges, funnily enough. So like, when I did my RDLs, the 200 kg set, that felt better in a lot of ways than when I was doing the 190, the 195s, because I don't know what it is about having a little bit less body fat somewhere, or a little bit less water weight, but I feel better in hip hinges. Some other things actually feel worse already, like some squat patterns on a hack squat, just having that little less cushioning already feels a little worse, but it actually will start to just feel better as I get used to being at that body weight. So yeah, and actually that's one of the questions, like, people asking whether I expect to drop weight, drop loading during the mini cut, or drop performance. Of course, it's kind of par for the course. You will probably drop some performance, especially in an aggressive deficit, just simply because recovery capacity is going down. But I will be pacing my volume in training to basically baseline levels of volume. So I will be still hopefully recovering session to session to the point where I'm not going into sessions sore. That's definitely not the goal. But the goal will realistically be trying to retain numbers. And if there is a day where I can take progressions, of course I'll still take a lift progression, provided that, execution still nails. But that realistically will be the goal, is to hold on to numbers. Get, back to, ideally I'll probably get down to 170-ish, between 170 and 175, and that'll be pretty lean. I'll take, again, some photos in a variety of lighting at that body weight, see how 170 looks, and if I can make 170 look pretty lean, like, striations across, like, my upper body, get my upper body lit. My legs won't be that lean at 170, but my upper body probably will be quite lean, so it'll be really interesting to see how I look at 170, compare that to where I was at 170 in the last mini cut, see if any muscle's been gained, which I'd cry if there wasn't. So that's realistically the goal with this phase, is just to resensitize a little bit, bring back appetite, bring back fitness, which got very poor, which was my own fault. I didn't have any sort of CV work in when I was getting up to 190, and I really paid the price for that. So that's something that, upon reassessment, is something that I'm keeping in. Will be some cardiovascular work, even when I'm pushing back up to 190, and the goal once I get to 170 will be to eke food all the way back up to 195, and then when I'm at 195 I'll have some more muscle, and then I'll probably start a mini diet back end of this year to sort of get ready for being in a better starting position for my full prep in 2020, which will probably start in March time. So that's sort of the plan. But like I said in the post on Instagram today, a plan is a plan, but you have to be very reactive in the sense you just set a plan and then you've got to change it along the way. So something might change and I might have to change my plans. But for now, that's where I'm at. And other than that, sort of general update on training. Training is going really well. So this week of training has been good. Had no issues at all. No real niggles at the moment, touch wood. So things are all good in the hood. And other than that, I've got not BMBF, UKDFBA Scottish coming up, not this weekend, but the weekend after. And Danny's got the Glutiwear event, right?
Yeah. So if anyone's going to the Glutiwear event, come and say hi. I'll see you there.
Yeah. Whereas, can people still get tickets for that or not?
I think you can. Have a look on the Glutiwear website. You can get the tickets through Eventbrite or the website itself.
Okay, cool. Fantastic. So yeah, we'll now get into some of the questions on Instagram. So I'll take one first and we'll go from there, see where it takes us. So let's start with a fairly sort of juicy one to get people engaged. So Shari asks, do you ever think that we will join forces in terms of coaching? I know we have very similar thoughts on this, so I'll let you take your opinions and I'll say anything that I think is different.
I think we both have like the same work ethic, and it would be, I think if we weren't in a relationship, it would be pretty good for us to work together.
Sure.
But we've had this discussion and we don't like necessarily think it's always a good idea to mix business with your other half. Because like me and AJ, we obviously want to separate our relationship and our business in some ways. And we potentially might collaborate on some things. But I think for the majority of it, like the bulk of our business, it's probably a good idea to keep those things separate. Just because it puts a lot of pressure on, like sharing a business and a relationship with the same person. There's a lot of pressure there. And yeah, there's a lot to consider with that. And I think, like I said, if me and AJ weren't together, which obviously I wouldn't want to happen, if he was just another person, we share the same work ethic, we love what we do, I think I'd love to work with a person like AJ. But as we are together, I think sometimes it's better. We will collaborate on some things. I definitely think we will in future. But I think for the bulk of our business, it's good to keep it separate.
Yep.
Potentially.
Yes, I would 100% agree. I've seen a lot of other businesses combine a female and a male coach, and they've been in a relationship, and I've seen that not go so well. So ultimately, like, you know, the integrity of our businesses would revolve around the solidity of our relationship, and that's something that I don't think we're both prepared to sort of risk in a sense, because if we get into an issue with regards to business, that can therefore affect our relationship. If we get into an issue with our relationship, that's going to affect our businesses. So we kind of want to keep both separate so that both can remain of a high quality and one doesn't affect the other, and we don't have the pressure of that. And
we bounce ideas off each other and stuff.
Yeah,
but
we do, yeah.
It's good to, like, me and AJ, for those of you who don't know, we basically live together. We spend all of our time together. We literally do everything together. So if we were to add a business on top of that, which we shared, everything, our whole entire lives would be together. Everything, every second of it, because we're so invested in our businesses and in our relationship. I think it would just be too much.
Yeah, agreed. It would be a lot of time spent together in a way that, you know, sometimes is pressurized. You know, like from a work perspective, we will sometimes be pressurized, and that can put, you know.
And if we wanted to chill together,
you can't.
We'd be thinking about business.
Yeah, you can't.
When we're trying to chill out.
So
it just wouldn't work.
It's good to have it separate, and obviously Danny has her individual niche in the sense that she coaches females, and I coach primarily males, but I do have females on my roster. But nevertheless, you know, Danny has her own focus, I have my own focus, and like we said, we bounce ideas off each other. I recommend my female clients to go and do posing with her, and, You know, if she got, you know, questions from males about physique development, she'd send them to me. So it's like, you know, bounce off the back of each other, and I think that works a little bit better. But there's no reason to suggest that we wouldn't do something together in some format in the future, like in a seminar or, you know, some sort of program, or we've discussed some business ideas that we've had that could be together that just wouldn't be full time.
Not the entire business.
Not the entire business. No, I just don't think that I think that it's not a good idea in some ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, hope that answers your question, Shari. Cool. So next question is on. So there was a post from John Jewett that discussed about sort of the importance of, or the differences between adding NEAT, increasing NEAT, so non-exercise activity thermogenesis, versus adding cardio on the treadmill for fat loss. So let's just phase this question to you. In a situation with a client, let's say, you know, we're looking to contest prep bikini, like, you know, what do you tend to favor more over the other in terms of when you're setting up creating the deficit? Do you prefer to increase NEATs versus adding cardio? When would you do one or the other? Are you doing more NEAT at the start, less cardio at the start, more cardio at the end? How do you tend to set up things?
It's partially person dependent. So like if somebody already has ridiculously high steps, like their steps are 15, 20,000, I do not want to drive them up any higher, because I think I've not seen the post, by the way.
Okay. Well, it's just basically discussing what I said in terms of like one versus the other, and also the fact that it's basically also the importance of NEAT in terms of the sense that people get lazy.
Yeah, so it's important to keep your NEAT consistent whilst you're driving up cardio, because what tends to happen is, as you increase somebody's cardio, if you aren't tracking their NEAT or using steps to track their NEAT, they will automatically like compensate by fidgeting less, walking less, just being less active away from their cardio in their training session. So whilst you're driving up cardio, they're burning less energy through their general activity. So that's why it's important to track your NEAT to make sure that you're not starting to downregulate your activity levels away from training and cardio. So yeah, and like I said, it is person dependent, because if someone's steps are already super duper high, I don't want to drive them up anymore. Like doing more than 20,000 steps a day, me and AJ did that in New York, and we were absolutely battered. So if somebody's doing that every single day, in my opinion, surely that's going to have an impact on the amount of muscle tissue they're carrying.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't like to drive NEAT up past a certain point. And like I said, if someone's already super active, I don't want to drive it up even higher. But it is a tool that can be utilised. Say for somebody that's really inactive and they come and they have really low steps, then for them it becomes really important to drive it up, because it's an easy way to increase their energy expenditure without them having to do formal cardio, which could potentially be more fatiguing.
Yeah.
So like I said, it's person dependent, but I wouldn't drive NEAT up past a certain point, and it is really, really important to monitor whilst you're increasing formal cardio, and whilst you're playing about with training as well.
Yeah, so I think to add to that, I think when you're looking at NEAT from the perspective of a contest prep, you need to, obviously if it's just general fat loss, then just, you know, track your steps and make sure that you're consistent with them. But outside of that, when you're looking at steps from a contest prep perspective, I think the only thing I have to add to what Danny already said, which was great, is the fact that you will have to look at how it affects you from a cosmetic perspective. So if you're driving up your steps and you start to notice your legs are flattening out considerably, obviously don't be like massively over analytical on this. Like, don't wake up one morning after I increase your steps by 2,000 and think your legs are flat. It's just not really going to happen. But if you drive up your steps over a long period of time and you're getting close to like the 20,000 mark, I see a lot of people's legs tend to fade in terms of just their general fullness. So definitely be cautious with that. Outside of that, I think the importance of NEAT intensity is one to be monitored as well. So let's say you start off your prep and you've got 10,000 steps and you're doing them all by just accumulating them naturally. So like I can hit 10,000 steps fairly close by just like walking to the shops a couple of times, walking to the gym or walking around the gym, etc., etc. So If I was to add steps on top of that, then maybe I'd look to start to implement power walks, especially later in prep when our ability to get our heart rate up is pretty hard because we're very fit. You know, my resting heart rate in prep is in the low 40s, which is Danny's off-season heart rate because she's just naturally having a very low heart rate and she keeps her fitness. But in terms of my heart rate during prep, I have to really work to get it up because my fitness is very well developed. So for me, going out for that, so for me at 190, going out for a walk, I might actually get my heart rate up by just going out for a slow-paced walk. But to elicit that same response from a heart rate perspective when I'm like close to 150 pounds and I'm very fit, oh my god, it's not going to do the same thing at all. So from a caloric burn standpoint, that same walk is just not as effective. So NEAT actually changes the same way in cardio, like the same way that cardio does, and that's why if people are purely using NEATs, especially towards the end when you're very fit, you're going to have to drive that NEAT up very, very high to get a decent caloric burn. And that's why you see people at the end of prep doing 20, 25,000, 30,000 steps a day, thinking that that's the best way to create energy expenditure, when in reality it's just not. And, you know, I think that a lot of coaches need to have a bit more of an open mind in terms of tracking NEATs, because I see a lot of coaches still not using step trackers. And, you know, they'll put up posts on Instagram saying, oh, my client's doing no cardio and is on this food. And, like, they're not doing no cardio. They're just doing loads of steps which you don't know about. And they're probably just expending energy because they want to remain on high food. And that's something as a client that, from a client perspective, I need to be very aware of. Like, for example, George, you know, I didn't change his steps for a couple of weeks and I noticed them just slowly creeping up to a point where he was probably just adding a little bit more, thinking that more was better. And a lot of clients will think that when you start rising up their steps, they're like, oh, okay, well, if Danny's increased my steps by 2,000, then I'm going to do 3,000 more. I'm going to do 4,000 more. And there is a point of diminishing returns in the sense that you'll be constantly on your feet all day. Cardio, then steps, then training. And you've got to really question as to when you're actually sitting down and trying to, you know, get yourself into a relaxed state, or the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, like trying to actually relax. Because when you do relax, you'll obviously start to have that, you know, from a physiological perspective, start to have that shift. And that's when you're actually going to be recovering and potentially in a position from a physiological perspective to actually lose fat as efficiently as possible. So,
and I think to add to that as well, there is a consideration that females obviously expend a lot less energy than males do, especially considering NEAT. Like, doing steps, the amount of calories a female is going to burn doing a certain amount of steps is very minimal.
Yeah.
So for most females, if their steps are already decent, I would favour an increase in cardio, because an increase in steps is going to have a very minimal effect. I might drive them up a little bit through a prep, but I wouldn't change them massively. I'd keep them where their usual steps are. And potentially if I work with them through an improvement season, I'll get them to hit a certain step target just to keep their activity levels at a decent level. But I don't think I would favour a step increase over a cardio increase for a small female.
Yeah, good stuff. Okay, Jeannie asks, I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce your name, Jeannie. So, I'm sorry if I pronounced it wrong. I'm pretty sure I got it right. So, what are your best prep brain moments? I know Danny has one, so I'll let you go first with your prep brain moments.
Okay, so probably the worst one was, I used to work at a Pure Gym opposite a Sainsbury's, and I used to go in to do my food shopping all the time and go through the self-service checkouts. So I did an entire food shop, scanned it all through the self-service checkouts, and then just walked off without paying. And someone came to chase me outside who I knew who worked there. So that was probably the worst, but I'm just like very clumsy in the last few weeks of prep. I'll do things like drop bowls, spill my oats over the bowl. Classic prep things. What about you?
See, I was actually trying to think about this question when it came in. I don't actually know, because I can't really remember what my best prep brain moment was. I probably had plenty, to be honest, but it feels like so long ago that I can't quite remember what dumb stuff I was doing. But to be fair, if I look back and like think about the differences from a psychological perspective, how different I was like, it's crazy how different I was. Like, a lot of things that I was very heavily focused on, I've got a very much more of a relaxed process on now. Like, I was very, very neurotic in terms of meal timing, very neurotic in terms of fluid intake, very neurotic in terms of cooking processes. Like, everything had to be just bang on, which I think I'll definitely be doing next prep. So, that's part of prep for me. I'm very neurotic, and I think a lot of the best people that turn up on stage in great condition are quite neurotic in the sense that they want to do the same things every day and they want to do them bang on. So, like, for me, like, when I was traveling to shows, like, I would take everything with me, and I mean everything, like every single bit of my day that was part of my routine, I would take with me, and I would make sure that everything was just absolutely timed to perfection, like, and I don't think that that's something that I think's a good thing to carry into your off season. So for you, Jeannie, like, to actually turn this question on its head and actually give you a bit of a positive thing. Whatever you're doing right now that's sort of like quite neurotic and repetitive and, in a way, good, positive, but don't try and carry that for too long into your off season, because you will affect ultimately your quality of life if you're taking over all of these neurotic things with regards to, crazy obsession with meal timing, crazy obsession with getting everything bang onto a T. Just relax a little bit in your off season. I think that's pretty important, because otherwise your gas tank, from a psychological perspective, will be pretty low going into your next fat loss phase. For me, just apart from like actually the fairly rapid rise in hunger going into lower calories on this mini cut, my psychological approach to it is very easy. Like, I can just get on with it fine. The only issue has just been, wow, I'm hungry, because I haven't ever been in a deficit in a long time. It's like the first time I'm feeling hungry in like 8 months. So apart from that, it's very easy for me to transition into a diet phase, because I've been spending so long being a little more relaxed. So yeah, I hope that helps, and I'm sorry that I couldn't think of my best prep brain moment. I'm trying to think of one apart from just being a little bit ratty here and there. And
AJ was so methodological.
I don't know, whatever that word is.
He was so neurotic about his timings that he never had a prep brain moment.
Yeah, I just didn't have time for it. It wasn't in my schedule, so I didn't quite fit it in, no.
My schedule was quite hectic as I was PTing.
Yeah, I wasn't PTing, so no problems with that. Right, so Luke, we'll take your question. When are we next getting a no bones platter?
When you agreed to take us for a no bones platter.
Yeah. Can we have a double date, or is that on the cards, Luke?
Yeah.
Have you got someone that's coming with you, or let's spark a bit of like, should we put the title of this, is Luke in a relationship?
Can we have 2 no bones platters?
Yeah, 2 no bones platters, 4 no bones platters. What are we saying, Luke? Let us know. Slide into the DMs as to whether we can hook up that event. I'm just trying to find Jeannie's question so I can timestamp it. Right. So outside of that, let's take another one. So when you hear the word successful, who's the first person that comes to your mind and why? That's really interesting. Let's see what your answer to that is.
I don't know. You answer first.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay. Well, I'd say to be fair, like, I'd say you're very successful in a lot of the ways that you do things. Ah, look at this. Fucking hell. That question was set up to be soppy. But yeah, I would say Danni, because obviously I'm surrounded by Danni all the time, and I see how much effort she puts into her coaching and her business. And to be fair, it's in a lot of ways, from what I've seen, like, in terms of other people, it's very much unrivaled in terms of, like, communication that she gives, the time that she gives for clients, her patience with clients, etc. So, like, if you were to determine like success, that doesn't, in my opinion, it's not like having hundreds and thousands of clients. It's actually, from a coaching perspective, success is running an efficient business with the sole integrity of the business remaining intact throughout its entire operation. So the reason why a lot of online coaches go down in a very quick fashion is because they're either not consistent, or they bite off more than they can chew, and their reputation drops. So I think from the successful business standpoint, Danni's doing very well.
I completely agree with that, and I think me and AJ share a lot of the same values in terms of the way that we run our businesses, the way that we care about our clients, the effort we put into it. We never let anyone down. We'll always be there for our clients whenever they need us. We put nothing but 100% into every client's check-in feedback, into their programming, and if anyone ever asks us a question, we either answer it or we go and find out the answer. We're constantly looking to further our knowledge. We went to the Muscle Mentors weekend the other day. We're both studying in our spare time, reading research, etc. So yeah, I would agree, and I think people should think a little bit more about the way that they measure success as well, because ultimately, like, some of the richest people in the world, they're very unhappy. So would you call that success? I personally wouldn't. I would much rather absolutely love doing what I do and earn enough and thoroughly enjoy it and get the most out of my life than be someone who won the lottery but didn't do anything to get there and was just rich and unhappy.
Yeah, totally agreed. I mean, we both make, not gonna hide it, we both make a very comfortable amount of money for how old we are and how long we've been in this game. But both very comfortable, and we're allowed to. We've got the ability to go on nice holidays. We've obviously got the ability to soon, be pretty much in a position to save and buy our house together and move out together. So, a lot of these opportunities we're opening up for ourselves because we've been super duper consistent. All you have to do is look back on our Instagram or look back on any of our social medias, which essentially drive our businesses, and see how consistent we've been, and not actually look at just, okay, you posted, look at the value in the post. Something that actually, again, a bit soppy, but something that actually attracted me to Danni in the first place was, unfortunately, in some ways, reading her social media. Someone asked how we met. We'll talk about that in a bit. But reading her social media and actually having someone that was posting stuff that was beneficial and helpful for people as opposed to just posting a throwback and a bikini, that made me want to speak to Danni a bit more, because that's someone that I wanted to be chatting to, because I knew that was someone who really was investing a lot of time, like me, into what I was doing. Not just putting stuff out there for the sake of it, but putting stuff out there for a reason, and wanting to help people regardless of the reach. Danni's reach has grown significantly. I think when I met her, she was on 4,000 followers, and now she's on 8. So you'll be at 10 in the next month or so, and you'll have the swipe up feature. So that's fantastic.
We just said that at the same time.
You've made it. All right, fantastic. Let's go on to another.
Why don't you do one of those posts that says "Get Danni to 10k"?
Yeah, well, I'm saving that for when you're about 1 away, and then you'll get 10 followers, and then 9 will unfollow, and you'll just be hovering around.
Why will they unfollow?
Because I'll tell them. I'll say unfollow.
AJ.
Oh dear. Right, okay, so next question. Favourite activity to do together other than smashing I love this question. Other than smashing PBs in the gym. So what's our favourite activity to do together, Danni? What do we like to do? Ooh, silence.
AJ likes to be a pig.
A pig?
We like to go on walks together. We like to go to the cinema and get pick and mix.
Yeah.
What else do we like to do? Go on holiday. On holiday, that's our favourite activity.
Yeah, I think holiday's the favourite activity, to be fair.
I love travelling.
Yeah, holiday's the favourite activity. So, yeah, I think, we do a lot of things, to be fair, that's outside of just smashing PBs in the gym. So I think there's a lot of variety in our life, which is nice. So
the other weekend we went to the service station, and AJ.
Wait. The weekend we went to the service station.
And AJ bought a pig hand warmer.
Oh yeah, I did. Yeah, I bought a pig. I mean, we saw the pig. It was a fluffy, cuddly pig, and I just saw it, and I was like, "Wow!" Immediate purchase. So we, Danni liked it too. So we were looking through the plushes, and there was various ones. There was unicorn, There was, what else was there? Was a sheep.
There was a panda.
There was a panda. The pig was ultimately the one we had to pick.
Yeah.
So it just, you can keep your hands warm in it, which is good for the winter months.
Good for the PNS.
We purchased a pig.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think outside of that, what else do we do that's fun?
We go do our fasted cardio together. That's very romantic. We did that this morning.
Yeah, we do that together, which is actually a benefit, to be fair. Like, it's a lot easier doing cardio with a partner.
Yeah.
With a tag along, as opposed to just going on dragging yourself on your own. Oh yeah, we like to go to bodybuilding shows together, don't we? So
yeah,
we go to bodybuilding shows together. We like that, and I think that's like one of the most enjoyable things in the sense that we both going to watch what essentially is our passion. Obviously, we like going to not only just gyms, but different gyms, like traveling to different gyms, trying out different gyms. And we meditate as well, don't we?
Yeah.
We now meditate together.
But the annoying thing is, AJ racks up his minutes on his meditation app. Because we use his phone.
Yeah.
So I don't get the minutes, but we meditate together.
Yeah, so it's outside of...
And on that note, meditation is actually something I have been recommending to quite a few of my clients recently. I genuinely think it is so beneficial for anybody to implement who can get into it. One of my clients implemented it. She was really struggling to get to sleep, and ever since she's been sleeping amazingly. Quite a few clients have just found it beneficial from a stress control and anxiety control perspective, but I genuinely think it's really beneficial. I saw it help AJ an absolute ton when he went through the thing with his heart, and then obviously I tried it myself, and yeah, I genuinely think it's something that anybody could benefit from. I've seen Amelia promote it for ages, but I've never used it myself until now. Yeah,
I like it a lot. I mean, I did it for a little bit of a time period a long time ago. It's why I've already got a little bit of a streak on Headspace, or some minutes racked up on Headspace. But outside of that, I think, that you just got to get into it and be consistent with it. Like, if you obviously get away from doing it, you get a couple of days away from doing it, you're not going to get back into it again. So, just be consistent with it, and it should provide benefit.
And I actually did a meditation class when I was in secondary school. You have to take something for general studies where you do an hour a week. I did meditation. Fun fact.
Very good. Cool. So, do we count protein from only direct sources, or do we include trace proteins as well?
We both do the same for this.
Yeah.
We both count trace protein as well as normal protein.
Yeah. So I think the only consideration in that instance is like, okay, let's say you're driving up carbohydrates and you're keeping protein static and you're getting more and more trace proteins in your carbohydrate sources, then you just need to be aware that you're getting enough highly bioavailable protein sources in each meal. So, ideally hitting that sort of 3 gram of leucine cap, and you're probably going to be doing that from hitting like a 25 gram bolus of protein. So if, and obviously if you're a little bit smaller, potentially you get away with a little bit less, but ideally 25 gram bolus. And most people do that anyway. Like, even if you weren't fully tracking on MyFitnessPal, you probably end up doing that anyway, regardless. So that's what I would say. Just, I track everything. Ultimately, if you're just tracking from source and you're actually trying to detract the protein from all the trace, you're going to spend hours on MyFitnessPal trying to work out your macros, or you're going to follow a meal plan and restrict your ability to have variety.
And at the end of the day, diversity in your food sources is so beneficial for gut health.
Yeah.
So, in my opinion, I don't favour a strict, rigid meal plan approach.
No, me neither.
I try and promote a little bit more flexibility and diversity in terms of nutrition. So yeah, that's why I favour setting macros.
Yeah, me too. And I do the same for my clients. Like, even if a client asks for a meal plan, the first thing I'll actually say to them is like, okay, right, cool. So you want a restriction on your ability to create diversity and your ability to have variety in your diet, which is one of the most fundamental things that we have to do create human health. Yeah.
And there's actually research into the fact that following a flexible approach to nutrition, so setting your macros, has less of a chance of promoting like the development of eating disorders, so disordered eating, throughout a prep.
Yeah, I'm not surprised about that at all. To be honest, because let's say you restrict and you're having the same foods every single day, the first thing you want to do when you're the end of prep is eat everything that wasn't on your meal plan. Whereas when you're on a flexible approach, you can have some degree of rotating food sources. So you're like, one day I'm like, oh, okay, I'm really craving fruit. Cool, let's have a huge bowl of fruit and make up some carbohydrates from that.
And don't get us wrong, me and AJ are not like IFYM will fit ice cream into our macros. That's not what we're like.
You did have Halo Top the other night, though.
Yeah, but we don't do that on a daily basis. But we don't try and fit loads of crap into our macros on a daily basis. And through a competition prep, I wouldn't have things like Halo Top.
No.
I would follow a structure in regards to my nutrition. The things which I would rotate would be like my vegetable sources, my fruit sources, my protein sources, to like flick between different...
Although, in your last prep, because of one of the coaches you worked with, you had no fruit in your diet before you met me.
Yeah. So I was going to say, on my last prep, before I took over my own prep, when I was working with my previous coach, I did follow a meal plan approach, and it didn't work for me. I would say that I think if I'd have followed that meal plan all the way through prep and I didn't take over my own prep, I would have ended up in quite a bad place in regards to my relationship with food. If I'd have stuck through with it.
Digestion horrendous.
My digestion wasn't very good from following a strict meal plan and not having any food variety, not having any fruit in my diet. So there are a lot of disadvantages to it, and I've experienced it firsthand, so I know exactly how it feels. Like, I wasn't going to the toilet properly because I was following a meal plan. So that just goes to show how much of a big impact it can have on you, and that is why I do not favour a restricted meal plan. I will give examples, but I don't think a rigid meal plan is the right way to go for most people. But like I said, me and AJ still have structure, but we just include variation, and if we want something, we'll track it in.
Yeah.
We still hit the fundamentals.
Yeah. I mean, I eat very similar. We both eat very similar day to day. It's just like minor changes here and there.
When we had Domino's.
Yeah, when we had a Domino's, that was good. But
in the off season, we are flexible, and we like to show you guys that so that you know we're not robots, and we like to enjoy food just like you do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I think that's important to show as well. It makes clients feel a lot more comfortable when they have their own meals out. And I had one of my clients this week said, like, he'd been declining this social event that he'd had with friends for ages, and he had the confidence to ask me, can I go to this social event? And I was like, mate, you should have been going all the fucking time. Like, you're in your off season. This is an actual opportunity for you to build up your ability to be flexible. It's an opportunity for you to view this as a bit of a challenge, and especially with some of my girls who have had previous EDs, I actually really like them to have periods of time where they go out for meals, or even a period of time where they don't track a little bit, and they see if they can view this as a challenge and get better and better at it. And watching them get better at it is very rewarding for me as a coach, because if they've improved their ability to go out and eat and remind themselves that they're not going to end up either one, over restricting and coming back super duper light, or two, binge eating and overeating, or three, just they'll realise that actually if they go out and they track sensibly, they're going to come back at a relatively similar body weight, and that there's no issues with that. That's actually the goal. That's fine. So yeah, and there's actually a lot of benefits to being able to do that in your off-season phases. So do you want to take one of your questions?
Someone asked me tips on relationships during prep. We will report back to you in 2020.
Yeah.
On that one.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I mean, the thing is, I think a lot of people enter preps with the whole negative affirmation that it's going to be bad and that everything's going to go to shit.
I think it's going to help us. Honestly, I think it's going to be a really positive
I think
thing.
Sex drive will increase.
Apart from that aspect of the relationship.
Aerobic conditioning will increase.
Yeah. Apart from that aspect of the relationship, I genuinely think it will be a positive thing, because obviously there will be times where we get on top of each other. We're going to be a little bit more irritable.
Obviously.
We're going to be a bit more irritable. So, there'll be times where we get, a little bit where AJ gets a bit agitated with me.
Yeah, and we'll get up each other's ends.
Or vice versa.
Yeah.
But ultimately, I think it will be a positive thing. We support each other in everything we do. Like, seeing AJ succeed will give me so much happiness. It does make it easier to get up and do cardio when we're both getting up and doing cardio. We support each other at the end of the day, and we'll do anything to help each other achieve whatever we set out to achieve.
Lovely.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That reeled back that question that was turning quite dirty. Good. Fantastic.
Oh, God.
Oh, God. I'm going to use that as a sound bite for the episode.
No.
There will be some points. Okay, cool. So, I think that...
Let me just do one. So,
okay.
One of my clients asked, what do you do pre-workout to set yourself up for a good session, including timings, food choices, and supplements? Can I go first with this? Because I want to add some context.
You've gone first the whole podcast, so you may as well go first again.
That's a lie.
Get ahead. Go ahead. Yeah, go. Go for
it. So, obviously, I know the person who's asked this question. It is a client. I've gone through this a few times with the client herself. And so, for everyone listening, what I do pre-workout is I'll obviously have my pre-workout meal, which I usually have like an hour and a half or 2 hours before I train. And then I have my intra when I train. I also either have a coffee and a non-stim pre or a stim-based pre. Obviously, just before I start off to walk to the gym. Like, I don't take that half an hour before. I take it, like, just before I'm about to set off. Then I'll walk to the gym and train. But ultimately, as long as you allow enough time for your pre-workout meal to digest, and if you're going to have a caffeine-based product or a non-stim pump product, take that before you go, obviously. And getting a good headspace as well. Like, AJ will watch YouTube videos or JP videos. I don't necessarily do that all the time because I'm just getting on with work and whatever.
Yeah, I've actually done that less recently. I haven't had the time to watch JP at all.
I just like, because I've been
actually bad, to be honest. I don't like doing that. I like giving myself the time to do it.
I would like to do that, but because I'm studying at the minute as well, like, work is just a bit full on, so I'm trying to get as much done as I can, and I don't really have the time to watch videos and stuff. But yeah, so as long as I allow my pre-workout meal enough time to digest, and then I have my caffeine source before I go to the gym, and make sure I take all of my equipment to the gym and then go through some mobility work when I get to the gym, I'm fine. Obviously, like I've said to this client, you've got to make the most of what you've got, and sometimes your circumstances, you know, you might have had a bad night's sleep that may impact your training performance, but that's okay. You've just got to make the most of what you've got and do the best that you can under your current circumstances. And an example of this is yesterday. So I ate my pre-workout meal about 2 hours before we set off to the gym.
Danny's fault.
Yeah, this is all my fault. And then AJ also ate his pre-workout meal. And when we were about to set off to the gym, I remembered I had a nail appointment in half an hour. So we went to the nail appointment and then went to the gym. So by the time we got there, it was probably 3 hours after we had our pre-workout.
Way too long.
Three
my
and a half
session
hours.
Just, went down the drain.
You said you had a good session,
Yeah,
and this was my point.
Yeah, it was good.
So you just ruined my point. So the point of this being, we weren't set up for a great session. Like, we ate our pre-workout, 3.5 hours before we actually trained. But we still both had a really good session. And AJ, didn't you have a really good session?
Yeah, it was actually good, yeah.
Yeah, so even though our conditions weren't perfect, we made the most of what we had available to us, and we still had a really good session. So sometimes, your conditions are never going to be perfect, and you've just got to do what you can. There are things you can do to optimise your setup, like we've previously discussed, but ultimately, don't beat yourself up if things aren't perfect.
Yeah, agreed. So I think I pretty much have a very similar routine to Danny. So I guess if there's anything I can add, I think make sure that over the course of your period of time, whatever phase you're in. So what phase is this client in at the moment? Is she gaining? Is she dieting?
Improvement season.
Okay, so she's improving. So as you're, going into your improvement season and your calories are progressing, there's going to be one fundamental factor that you have to consider is the digestion of certain foods. So like me and Danny actually both hit a point where we couldn't actually digest oats anymore, or at least not efficiently. So both of our pre-workout meals used to be oats for a long period of time. And, Danny got to the point where, I got to the point first where I was like, nah, like I felt awful off of them. I felt almost like bloated and distended. I felt tired and groggy after eating them. For some reason, they just weren't sitting well. And when you feel like tired and run down after eating something, it's usually a sign that from a digestive standpoint, something is not quite right. And your body's having to work super duper hard to be able to process that food in order for you to get obviously ready and digested for the gym. And if you're heading into the gym bloated, it's not good for your confidence, especially as a female. You want to be wearing flattering clothing, or at least clothing that's a bit tight fitting. And if you're going in bloated, and it's just not nice. It's not going to set you up psychologically well for the session. So monitor food options. Really assess as to whether you're making a correct decision or not, based on the feedback that I've just mentioned. And outside of that, just really make sure that you're thinking about electrolytes as well in that window of time. So if you're looking at trying to, on the basic term, send the fuel to the muscle groups, so we're looking at transporting glycogen into the muscle cell, we're going to use a variety of things to be able to do that, most namely sodium, potassium, and water. So if you're going to the session poorly hydrated, then your chances of adequately achieving cellular hydration is low. So making sure you've got plenty of fluid in you before you go into that pre-workout meal setting. Ideally not drinking a load of fluid with your pre-workout meal, because that may well cause a degree of bloating or digestive issues. But ideally getting in, a decent amount of fluid pre the meal, and then with the meal itself, putting some grinds of, sea salt, pink Himalayan rock salt on it, etc. Maybe a couple of grams of low salt as well, to aid in your ability to consume enough potassium. And then you should be able to, since introducing and balancing out potassium for me, I've seen a big difference in my pumps in the gym, and also my just general hydration status throughout the day. Just obviously taking feedback from urine, etc., and just general hydration status. So be aware of electrolytes. Potentially, I'm sure Danny's recommended as well, but think about electrolytes in your intra. So if you're not currently having them, maybe have a look at that, and that will obviously stop the potential for you to be in a negative electrolyte position post-workout when you've depleted electrolytes through perspiration and obviously the excretion, which will involve around training windows. So yeah, I would say that that's the things that you need to be considering. And outside of that, my client George says get your nut in the game, and that's really true. You have to get your nut in the game before you train. The things that you should be thinking about when you're training is training. So if you've got loads on your mind from work, a lot of us work busy and demanding jobs. Even us, me and Danny, will take a lot of our work into our sessions sometimes. And, we're thinking about things, we're thinking about peak weeks or busyness, or the fact that we've got 15 WhatsApps to reply, or we get onto our, I've got ready for a top set before, and I've had a check-in come in and it's 25 minutes long, and it will really knock me. So I found that for the most part, when I can try and switch my phone into airplane mode, I will do it. It's difficult for me because I actually I view as sometimes in between sets I can reply to a WhatsApp or something, which I really shouldn't be doing, because I like to stay focused within the session, and actually my efficiency of the session will massively increase if I don't go on WhatsApp. But at the same time, yeah, so whatever you're doing from a work perspective, switch off from work, switch on to training, and whether that's, a pre-workout video, watching something on the members site or on YouTube, whatever gets you going pre-workout, definitely look at that and take that into your session.
Can I just add as well, so the client who asked this question, her training sessions are really short. So it might not necessarily be appropriate for her to have an intra-workout. Her sessions are literally an hour.
Yeah.
So it's not always necessary for everybody to have an intra-workout. I would particularly recommend them if your sessions are long and intense and you feel like you need a bit of a kick up the bum.
I mean, she could still have electrolytes just on its own in the drink.
Definitely.
With some squash.
Yeah.
There'd be no problems with that.
No, but I'm saying it's not always 100% necessary.
Yeah,
And it's
absolutely
person
agreed.
dependent.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. Like, if you're training for less than an hour, there's no need for having carbohydrates.
That's all I was saying.
So yeah, for sure, I agree with that totally. So yeah, I think we've hit about an hour. So we'll leave it there. Yeah.
Thanks for listening, guys.
Yeah, thank you for listening, and of course, just as always, if you give this a like on YouTube, that'd be much appreciated. Even though it is an audio format, but I know that a lot of you like the YouTubes. And of course, if you're listening on SoundCloud or iTunes or Spotify,
Tag us in your Instagram story.
She said it. Yeah, she said it. So yeah, tag us, and the most funny tag, whatever it is, like whether it's, I don't know, an emoji or a GIF or whatever, the best tag, I will give a high five at some point in the near future. All right, guys, I'll speak to you soon, and thanks again for Danny for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
I'll speak to you in the next one, guys. In a bit. Bye. Bye.